Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, staring at the empty space where New Seoul used to orbit. 2 million people had lived on that colony world just 6 hours ago. Now there was nothing but debris and cooling ash floating in the void. His hands gripped the edge of the command console so hard his knuckles turned white. The screen in front of him showed the final transmission from the planet's surface. A little girl holding her mother's hand, looking up at the sky as the Varathian bombardment ships appeared. The transmission cut off in static and fire. Lieutenant Day approached quietly. He had been with Hyunwoo for 7 years, through pirate raids and border disputes. But nothing like this. Nothing that erased an entire world in minutes. Sir, we're receiving a system-wide broadcast. It's from the Varathian Emperor himself. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. Every screen on the bridge switched to show the same image. Emperor Kalmeth sat on a throne carved from a single massive crystal. His species looked almost insect-like to human eyes, with 4 arms and a ridged exoskeleton that shimmered like oil on water. But his eyes were the worst part. They held the cold certainty of someone who had never lost anything. People of humanity. The Emperor's voice came through the translator, smooth and patronizing. Your species is young. You have barely learned to walk between the stars. For 3,000 years, my empire has ruled 43 systems. 12 civilizations knelt before us or were erased from existence. You will be the 13th to kneel, or you will follow your colony into dust. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. Your ambassador came to us with words of peace. We gave him our answer. Your colony world was our message. You have 72 hours to deliver your unconditional surrender. If you refuse, we will burn Earth itself. Choose wisely, children. The transmission ended. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Sir, Day said quietly. Earth Command is calling for all fleet commanders. Emergency channel. Hyunwoo took a deep breath and accepted the call. Admiral Bora's face appeared on his personal screen. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp as broken glass. Captain, I'm giving you emergency wartime authority over all vessels in your sector. The Varathian main fleet is 10,000 ships strong. They're moving toward Earth and they'll arrive in 3 days. She paused. The council met. We voted, no surrender. Not now, not ever. Understood, Admiral. What are our orders? Buy us time. Slow them down. Make them pay for every light year they advance. Bora's expression hardened. And Captain? The Emperor made a mistake today. He showed us exactly what he thinks of peace. So we're going to show him what humans do when someone murders our children. The call ended. Hyunwoo turned to face his crew. 23 men and women who had signed up to patrol borders and protect shipping lanes. They looked scared. They should be. They were about to go to war against an empire that had conquered half the known galaxy. Day, get me every ship in range. I don't care if it's military, civilian, or a mining barge. If it can fly and carry a weapon, I want it in our formation. Sir, even with every ship, we're outnumbered 100 to 1. I know. But they don't know what we're willing to do yet, and that's going to be our advantage. 3 hours later, Hyunwoo had assembled a fleet of 87 ships. Most were small patrol vessels like his own. A few were cargo haulers that the crews had welded railguns onto. One was a luxury yacht, whose owner had filled it with explosives and volunteered to pilot it himself. They positioned themselves in the outer system, hiding among the asteroids and ice. Waiting. On Earth, Dr. Ji-won worked frantically in her laboratory on Prometheus Station. She had been studying Varathian biology for months after first contact. Now that study had become a matter of survival. Their neural structure is fascinating, she muttered to herself, pulling up scan after scan. It's like a network. They're not telepathic exactly, but their nervous systems operate on similar frequencies. If we could find the right wavelength. Her assistant, a young technician named Minho, brought her another coffee. Doctor, the military is asking for anything we have. Any weakness at all. Tell them I'm working on it. But Minho, this network structure, it could be their greatest strength or their biggest vulnerability. I just need more time to figure out which. She didn't have time. None of them did. In the depths of Earth's military headquarters, Admiral Bora sat with Elder Myung-hee. The old woman was 156 years old, kept alive by modern medicine. She had lived through Earth's last great war, back when humans still fought each other instead of exploring the stars. You know what you're asking me to authorize? Bora said quietly. Elder Myung-hee nodded slowly. I do. Protocol Ragnarok, the weapons we promised we would never use again. The weapons we built after we learned what monsters we could be. If we use those weapons, the galaxy will fear us. If we don't use them, there won't be a galaxy to fear anything. The old woman's eyes were distant, remembering horrors from a century ago. Admiral, I watched my city burn when I was a little girl. Nuclear fire turning night into day. We swore we would never do that to each other again. But we never promised we wouldn't do it to someone else. Someone who comes to our home and murders our children. Bora closed her eyes. I'll give the order. Good, let the Emperor learn what every human already knows. We're very good at killing. We've had 10,000 years of practice on each other. In space, Captain Hyunwoo received the notification. His console beeped, showing classified files being decrypted. Weapon specifications, tactical protocols, things with names like Hellfire and Widow's Kiss and Sun Death. He read through them slowly. His face went pale. Dear God, he whispered. We built these. Day looked over his shoulder and went quiet. Sir, these weapons, they're designed to crack planets, to ignite stars, to poison entire atmospheres. I know. Hyunwoo looked up at the stars where 10,000 enemy ships were approaching. And now the Emperor is going to find out why humanity banned them. Not because we couldn't build them, but because we could, and we used them on each other until we learned better. He took a breath and opened a channel to his small fleet. All ships, this is Captain Hyunwoo. In 60 hours, the Varathian fleet will be here. They think we're weak. They think we'll break. They don't know that every human alive carries the memory of countless wars in their blood. Our ancestors survived the Black Death, world wars, nuclear fire, and the climate collapse. We're the descendants of survivors, and survivors don't give up. They fight, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to make them bleed for every inch of space, and we're going to buy Earth enough time to show the Emperor exactly what kind of monster he woke up. The small fleet acknowledged. 87 ships against 10,000. The war had begun. The human fleet crossed 3 star systems in pursuit of the retreating Varathians. Captain Hyunwoo's ship led the advance, its hull scarred from battle but still flying. Behind him came 400 vessels, all that remained of Earth's defensive fleet. But they weren't defending anymore. They were hunting. On the bridge, Lieutenant Day monitored the enemy positions. Sir, the Varathian fleet is regrouping at their homeworld. Looks like they're preparing for a siege. They don't understand, Hyunwoo said quietly. Humans invented the siege. We perfected it over thousands of years. Troy, Carthage, Leningrad, Shanghai. We know every way a siege can be broken, and we know that the best siege is the one that never happens because you strike so hard and fast that the enemy doesn't have time to prepare. He opened a channel to Admiral Bora back on Earth. Admiral, we've located the Varathian homeworld, requesting permission to engage. Bora's face appeared on his screen. She looked older than she had a week ago. The weight of command in wartime aged people quickly. Permission granted, Captain. But Hyunwoo, once we do this, there's no going back. We'll be the species that brought war to someone else's home. The galaxy will judge us for it. They can judge us when we're alive, Admiral. If we stop now, if we show mercy, the Emperor will rebuild. He'll come back stronger. We have to end this completely. I know. That's why I'm sending you reinforcements. Captain Sua and her ship Horizon's End will be there in 6 hours. She's been testing some new technology. Jump drives that can cross systems in minutes instead of days. Experimental technology? We're past the point of playing it safe, Captain. Hit them with everything we have. Show them why you don't pick a fight with humanity. The call ended. Hyunwoo turned to his crew. All ships, battle stations. We're going in. On the Varathian homeworld, Emperor Kalmeth stood in his palace looking out at the city. Billions of his people lived on this world. They had known only peace for 3,000 years. The Empire fought its wars in distant systems, never bringing the violence home. Until now, his advisor Kethmar entered the throne room. Majesty, the human fleet has been detected at the edge of our system. They'll be here in hours. How many ships? 400, Majesty. And we have 3,000 vessels defending our homeworld plus all our ground defenses. We outnumber them. Yes, Majesty. But they keep doing things we don't expect. They fight in ways that the palace shook. Not from an explosion. From something appearing in the sky above the city. A ship larger than any Varathian vessel had simply materialized out of nowhere. Its hull was covered in strange markings and weapons ports were opening along its sides. Captain Sua stood on the bridge of Horizon's End, looking down at the Varathian capital city. Her experimental jump drive had worked perfectly. allowing her to appear directly in orbit, bypassing all their defensive positions. This is Captain Sua of the human vessel Horizon's End to all Vorathian forces. You have 10 minutes to evacuate your orbital platforms and pull back your fleet. If you don't, I'm authorized to demonstrate what happens when you threaten Earth. On the surface, Emperor Kalmeth felt rage building inside him. How dare these primitives threaten him in his own palace? All ships, destroy that vessel now! The Vorathian orbital defense platforms opened fire. Energy weapons and missiles converged on Horizon's End. But Sua had been expecting that. Her ship's shields absorbed the first wave of attacks, and then her weapons fired back. But these weren't conventional weapons. These were gravitational weapons, technology that humanity had developed by studying black holes and neutron stars. Where the beam struck, space itself twisted. The orbital platforms didn't explode. They collapsed inward, crushed by their own gravity until they were the size of marbles. 8 minutes, Sua said calmly. Your Majesty, I suggest you start evacuating. On Earth, Elder Myung-hee watched the battlefield with General Kyung-soo. The general commanded humanity's ground forces, and his troops were ready to deploy if necessary. Do you think the Emperor will surrender? Myung-hee asked. No, Kyung-soo replied. He's ruled for 1,000 years. People who hold power that long don't know how to let it go. He'll fight until we tear the throne out from under him. Then that's what we'll do. Prepare your troops, General. If the Vorathians won't evacuate their cities, we'll have to go in and dig them out. Kyung-soo had fought in the Mars Rebellion 20 years ago, the last time humans had fought each other in space. He knew what urban combat looked like. He knew how many people would die. Elder, if we do this, the civilian casualties will be enormous. I know, but the Emperor made his choice when he vaporized New Seoul. 2 million of our people died in minutes. How many of his people am I willing to sacrifice to make sure he can never do that again? She looked at him with ancient, sad eyes. All of them, General. Every single one if necessary. Because if we lose, if we show mercy and the Emperor survives, he'll do this again. Maybe not to us. Maybe to the next species that says no to him. We have to end this empire. Permanently. In space above the Vorathian homeworld, Captain Hyun-woo's fleet arrived. They found Sua's ship holding position with the scattered remains of the orbital defenses floating around it. Captain Sua, status report. They're refusing to surrender, Hyun-woo. The Emperor is rallying his fleet for a final defense. Looks like about 2,000 ships forming up between us and the planet. Then we go through them. All ships attack formation. Target their command vessels first. Break their coordination. The two fleets collided. But this time the humans had learned the Vorathian patterns. They knew how the enemy moved, how they thought, how they fought. And more importantly, they knew how to exploit every weakness. Private J and his Marine unit were assigned to one of the drop ships heading for the planet's surface. They would be landing in the capital city itself, fighting their way through the streets to reach the Imperial Palace. Marines, their sergeant said, we're about to do something that humans haven't done in a century. We're going to invade another species' homeworld. Command says minimal civilian casualties. That means you identify your targets before you shoot. But make no mistake, anyone carrying a weapon is fair game. The Emperor had his chance to surrender. He chose to fight. So we fight. Jay checked his equipment one more time. He thought about his family back on Earth. His mother, his little sister. He was doing this so they would never have to be afraid of aliens dropping fire from the sky. The dropship entered the atmosphere, shaking violently. Through the windows, Jay could see the city below. It was beautiful in a strange way, with towers of crystal and metal reaching toward the sky. It reminded him of pictures of human cities before the wars. Before they learned what happened when civilization collapsed. They were about to teach the Vorathians that same lesson. The dropship landed in a plaza near the Imperial Palace. The Marines poured out, taking cover behind their vehicles. Vorathian warriors emerged from the buildings, firing energy weapons that burned through concrete and metal. Jay fired back, his rifle bucking against his shoulder. The training took over. Move, shoot, move again. Stay low, watch your corners. Cover your squad mates. A Vorathian warrior charged at him, all forearms wielding weapons. Jay shot it twice in the chest, but its armor held. So he did what humans had learned to do when technology failed. He closed the distance and fought hand to hand. His combat knife found the weak spot where the warrior's armor joined and the alien went down. All across the city, similar battles raged. The Vorathians fought bravely, defending their home. but they were fighting an enemy that had perfected urban warfare through centuries of brutal experience. Every building, every street corner, every piece of cover was a potential ambush point for the human Marines. General Kyung-soo coordinated the ground assault from his command ship in orbit. He watched as his forces pushed deeper into the city, street by street, building by building. It was slow, bloody work, but it was working. In his palace, Emperor Kalmuth finally understood what was happening. His empire was falling, not over years or decades, but in days. These humans, these creatures he had dismissed as primitive, were destroying everything he had built. An aide rushed into the throne room. "Majesty, the humans have breached the outer palace defenses. They're fighting in the royal district. How many?" "Thousands, Majesty, and more ships are landing every minute." Kalmuth sat on his throne, that magnificent crystal seat that had held 47 emperors before him. He had ruled for 1,000 years. He had conquered 12 civilizations, and now it was ending because he had made one simple mistake. He had underestimated the survivors. A transmission came through on the palace systems. Captain Hyunwoo's face appeared on every screen. "Emperor Kalmuth, this is Captain Hyunwoo of Earth's defense fleet. Your orbital defenses are destroyed. Your fleet is scattered. My troops are in your city. You have one chance to end this. Surrender now. Order your forces to stand down. Do this and we'll spare your people." The Emperor looked at the human on the screen. Such a small creature, really. 2 arms instead of 4, soft skin instead of armor plating. But those eyes held something that Kalmuth recognized at last, the eyes of someone who had survived horrors and come out harder for it. Private J crouched behind a shattered fountain in the Imperial Plaza. His unit had been fighting for 6 hours straight, pushing through the city toward the palace. Bodies lay in the streets, human and Varathian both. War was ugly no matter who fought it. "Sergeant, the palace gates are ahead," Jay reported through his comm. "Heavy resistance. At least 50 warriors in defensive positions. Hold position. Captain Hyunwoo is bringing down orbital support." From space, Horizon's End fired precision strikes at the palace defenses, not the city-destroying weapons humanity possessed, but surgical strikes that took out weapon emplacements without destroying the entire structure. Captain Sua coordinated each shot carefully, painfully aware that civilian Varathians were sheltering in the buildings all around them. The gates exploded inward. Jay's unit charged through the smoke, firing as they moved. The Varathian Royal Guards fought with desperate courage, but they were defending a single choke point against an enemy that had studied every siege in human history. The Marines didn't try to break through the main defenses. Instead, they circled around, found the weak points in the palace walls, and breached from 3 different directions simultaneously. Emperor Kalmuth heard the explosions getting closer. He sat on his throne, refusing to flee. Around him, his most loyal warriors took up defensive positions. If he was going to die, it would be as an emperor, not a coward running into the darkness. Captain Hyunwoo landed his shuttle in the palace courtyard. His face was grim as he stepped out, rifle in hand. Lieutenant Day and a squad of Marines followed him. They had come so far, from the first ambush in the asteroid belt to this moment, standing in the heart of the enemy's capital. They entered the throne room. It was magnificent, all crystal and precious metals, built to showcase the power and permanence of the Varathian Empire. 50 royal guards stood between them and the Emperor. "Last chance," Hyunwoo called out. "Surrender and live. Your empire is already over. Don't die for a lost cause." The guards didn't move. They were warriors of the old tradition, bound by honor to defend their emperor to the death. So be it. The firefight was brief and brutal. The Varathian guards fought bravely, but they were facing Marines who had trained for close-quarters combat since childhood. When the smoke cleared, all 50 guards lay dead or dying. Not a single human Marine had been killed, though several were wounded. Hyunwoo walked toward the throne, his boots echoing in the vast chamber. Emperor Kalmuth sat motionless, watching him approach. "You've won," the Emperor said quietly. "My empire is destroyed. My fleet is scattered. My homeworld is occupied. What more do you want from me?" "I want you to understand something," Hyunwoo replied. "You started this war because you thought humanity was weak. You thought our talk of peace meant we had forgotten how to fight. You were wrong." He stopped at the base of the throne, looking up at the alien ruler who had lived for 1,000 years. "Humanity didn't reach the stars because we were peaceful. We reached the stars despite being extraordinarily good at killing each other. We fought wars that lasted decades, We built weapons that could destroy entire continents. We came so close to wiping ourselves out that we had to consciously choose to stop. Do you understand? Our peace isn't weakness. It's a choice. A decision we make every single day to be better than what we're capable of. The Emperor stared at him. Then why this? Why destroy my empire? Why bring war to my world? Because you gave us no choice. You murdered 2 million of our people to make a point. You thought we would kneel. Instead, you forced us to become what we spent centuries trying to move past. You woke up the monster we keep locked inside ourselves, and now you see the result. Hyunwoo raised his rifle. You asked me what I want from you. I want you to be a lesson. I want every species in this galaxy to know what happens when you come to Earth and threaten our children. I want your death to be a warning that lasts for 1,000 years. Wait, the Emperor said. Please, I surrender. I'll order my forces to stand down. You had your chance to surrender. You refused. You chose to fight to the end. Hyunwoo's finger moved to the trigger. This is the end. The sun was rising over the Vorathian capital. Golden light streamed through the windows of the throne room. Emperor Kalmeth, who had ruled for 1,000 years and conquered 12 civilizations, looked out at the dawn one last time. Then Captain Hyunwoo fired. The war lasted 19 days from the first shot to the Emperor's death. In those 19 days, humanity had shown the galaxy something that most species didn't understand. Humans weren't dangerous because they were strong or advanced or numerous. They were dangerous because they knew how to survive. And survivors did whatever it took to keep surviving. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened on the neutral world of Axis Prime. Representatives from 40 species attended, and every single one of them was terrified of the humans sitting in the Earth delegation. Ambassador Sung Min stood at the podium. He was thinner than before, having been rescued from his damaged escape pod after 3 weeks drifting in space. The Vorathian attack that killed his peace delegation had nearly killed him too. Members of the council, he began, Earth stands before you today not seeking forgiveness, but understanding. When Emperor Kalmeth attacked our colony world and murdered 2 million civilians, he forced us into a war we never wanted. We responded the only way we knew how, with total commitment and every weapon at our disposal. An alien delegate from the Metharian species stood. Ambassador, your forces used weapons banned by the Galactic Warfare Convention. Fragmentation rounds. Biological agents. You weaponized a star. These are war crimes. They are, Sungmin agreed calmly, and we use them anyway. Because the Emperor didn't care about your conventions. He cared about conquest and domination. We showed him and the rest of the galaxy that humanity will not be conquered. We will not be dominated, and we will use every tool we possess to survive. Another delegate from the peaceful Valorian collective spoke nervously. But Ambassador, surely you understand that the other species fear you now. You destroyed an empire in 19 days. You occupied their homeworld. You executed their emperor. What's to stop you from becoming the next great threat? Sungmin looked around the chamber. You want to know what stops us? We stop us. Every day, humanity makes a choice to be better than our worst impulses. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other, learning every possible way to kill and destroy. Then we decided to do something different. We reached for the stars. We explored, we built, we created, he paused. But make no mistake, we remember how to fight. We remember how to wage total war. And if anyone ever threatens Earth again, if anyone ever comes to our home and murders our people, we will show them exactly what we showed the Vorathian Empire. Overwhelming, absolute, and final destruction. Admiral Bora stood beside him. The Council wants to know if Earth will become the next empire. Here's our answer, no. We're establishing the Accord of Mars. Any species that attacks humanity will face total war without mercy. But humanity will never strike first. We will defend our people, our allies, and our interests. Nothing more. Elder Myung-hee, now 156 years old, addressed the council. I'm old enough to remember when humans fought each other over land, resources, and ideology. I watched my world burn, but I also watched us choose to be better. The Vorathian Empire stood for 3,000 years by conquering others. Earth will stand for the next 3,000 years by defending ourselves and anyone who asks for our protection. The council debated for 3 days. Finally, they reached a decision. The Vorathian Empire would be dissolved. The Vorathian people would be allowed to govern themselves, but under human supervision for the next generation. Any species that launched unprovoked attacks on other civilizations would face consequences enforced by Earth and its allies. 26 species immediately signed mutual defense treaties with Earth, not because they liked humans, because they feared them. And that fear would keep the peace better than any law or convention ever could. On Earth, Captain Hyunwoo stood at the memorial for New Seoul. 2 million names carved into black stone. He placed flowers at the base just like he did every week. Dr. Ji-won found him there. She had been working with Varathian survivors, helping them integrate into galactic society. It was strange work, teaching the descendants of an empire how to live without conquering others. "I heard your testimony to the council went well," she said. "I told them the truth. We're not monsters. We're just survivors who learned to be very good at staying alive." He touched one of the names on the memorial. "But Ji-won, I killed the emperor. I looked him in the eyes and I shot him. That's not something I can forget. You did what you had to do, what all of us had to do. The emperor gave us no choice, I know. But knowing it was necessary doesn't make it easier." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Ji-won said, "The Varathian youth are eager to learn from us. They want to understand how we went from fighting each other to exploring the stars. They see us as proof that a violent species can choose peace. Then maybe something good came from all this. Maybe the next generation will be better." Dr. Ji-won hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned as she stared at the holographic display showing Varathian neural patterns. Around her, the laboratory hummed with activity. Every scientist on Prometheus Station had abandoned their regular work to focus on one question. How do you kill a species that has conquered half the galaxy? "There," she said suddenly, pointing at a spike in the data. "See that frequency? Their entire nervous system synchronizes at exactly 4.7 gigahertz. It's how they coordinate in battle. They share tactical information almost instantaneously." Her colleague, Dr. Young-soo, leaned closer. "That's brilliant for them. But if we could disrupt that frequency..." "Exactly. It would be like giving their entire fleet a seizure at the same time." Ji-won's hands flew over the controls. "I'm sending this to Earth Command right now. If they can build an emitter strong enough..." On Earth, Admiral Bo-ra received the data and immediately forwarded it to Engineer Hae-won. The engineer had spent the last 20 years designing weapons that the government classified as too dangerous to deploy. Today, those classifications were being removed one by one. Hae-won stood in a massive underground facility. Around her, technicians were pulling covers off missiles that hadn't seen daylight in decades. These were the weapons from humanity's darkest days. Antimatter warheads, biological agents, gravitational collapse bombs. And now, thanks to Dr. Ji-won, they had something new to add to the arsenal. "Get me a neural disruptor built around this frequency," Hae-won ordered. "I want it mounted on every ship we have within 18 hours. And someone wake up the team that designed the Sun-Death system. Tell them we're going active." A young technician looked nervous. "Ma'am, the Sun-Death missiles can ignite a star's core. If we use those, then we use them. The Varathians wanted war. We're going to give them war the way humans invented it, total. Brutal, final." In space, Captain Hyunwoo's small fleet waited among the asteroids. His sensors showed the Varathian advance fleet approaching. Not the main force yet, just the scouts. 500 ships moving in perfect formation. "All vessels, hold position," Hyunwoo ordered quietly. "Wait for my signal." Lieutenant Day monitored the approaching ships. "Sir, they're scanning the asteroids. They'll detect us in 2 minutes. Let them. Commander Taeyang's people should be in position by now." Taeyang commanded the Shadow Corps, humanity's Black Operations Division. While the Varathians focused on their glorious advance toward Earth, Taeyang's teams had slipped through their supply lines. They were ghosts, invisible and deadly. Taeyang stood in the cargo bay of a stolen Varathian supply ship. Around him, his team worked quickly and quietly. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were saboteurs, assassins, and spies. The kind of people that civilized societies pretended didn't exist. "Charges set on the fuel reserves," one of his operatives reported. "When this station goes up, it'll take 3 more with it." "Good, what about the biological agent?" "Deployed in their food supplies. It won't kill them, but they're going to wish it did. Severe neurological pain for about 72 hours. Taeyang smiled coldly. "The Emperor wanted to see what humans are capable of. Let's show him that we didn't get good at war by fighting fair. We got good at war by fighting to win." They vanished into the shadows just before the first explosion ripped through the Varathian supply station. Back in Earth's solar system, Hyunwoo watched as the enemy scouts entered the asteroid field. His hand hovered over the detonation control. "Sir, they're right in the kill zone," Day reported. "Fire." The asteroids exploded. But these weren't normal explosions. Humanity had spent months seeding the field with antimatter charges. The blasts ripped through space like tiny stars being born and dying in seconds. The Varathian formation disintegrated. 500 ships became debris in the span of a heartbeat. "All ships, engage," Hyunwoo ordered. His small fleet emerged from hiding, railguns blazing. They hit the scattered survivors before they could reform. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't honorable. It was an ambush, pure and simple. Something humans had been perfecting since they lived in caves and hunted with sharpened stones. On the Varathian command ship, Fleet Commander Rathanel watched his advanced scouts disappear from the tactical display. For 3,000 years, the Varathian Empire had fought wars a certain way. Honorable, direct, fleet against fleet in open space. These humans didn't fight that way. They hid, they ambushed. They used the terrain. They fought like prey animals defending their territory. Rathnell didn't understand yet that prey animals were the most dangerous fighters in the universe. He opened a channel to Emperor Kalmeth. "Your Majesty, the humans destroyed our advanced scouts. They used some kind of trap in the asteroid field." The Emperor's image appeared, those cold eyes showing a flicker of annoyance. "A lucky strike? Continue the advance. Crush them." "Yes, Your Majesty." But Rathanel felt something unfamiliar crawling up his spine. It would be many hours before he recognized it as fear. On Earth, Elder Myung-hee addressed the planetary council. The old woman stood slowly, leaning on her cane. Every leader on Earth watched her through their screens. "I was born during the last great human war," she began. "I was 5 years old when I watched nuclear fire consume my city. I saw what humans do to each other when we forget mercy, when we embrace our capacity for destruction." She paused, her ancient eyes sweeping across the council. "We swore after that war that we would never go back, that we would be better. We explored the stars hoping to find wisdom, peace, and understanding. And we did find other species. We learned from them. We grew." Her voice hardened. But the Varathian Emperor made a mistake. He thought our peace meant weakness. He thought our restraint meant we had forgotten how to fight. He murdered 2 million of our people to make a point. So now we need to make a point of our own. She tapped her cane on the floor. "I'm authorizing Protocol Ragnarok. Every weapon we banned, every system we decommissioned, every piece of technology we swore we'd never use again. All of it goes active. Right now." One of the council members spoke up. "Elder, if we do this, the galaxy will see us as monsters. Better they see us as living monsters than remember us as dead angels," Myung-hee replied. "The Emperor wanted war. We're going to show him what happens when you go to war with a species that nearly wiped itself out 3 times before it learned to reach the stars. We're survivors, and survivors do whatever it takes." In orbit above Earth, Colonel Minji watched as her defense platforms came online. They called her the Iron Duchess, and she had earned the nickname. She had spent 15 years designing Earth's orbital defenses, planning for a threat that everyone said would never come. Now that threat was 48 hours away. Railgun batteries 1 through 300. "Reporting operational," her tactical officer announced. "Good. Load them with the new rounds, the ones that violate the Galactic Warfare Convention." "Ma'am, those rounds are classified as war crimes. They contain fragmentation cores that—" "I know what they contain, Lieutenant. Load them. When those Varathian ships enter our space, I want every shot to count. And if the galaxy wants to put me on trial after we win, they're welcome to try." On the flagship of the Varathian fleet, Emperor Kalmeth received reports of more setbacks. 3 supply stations destroyed, hundreds of his warriors suffering from some kind of biological attack. And the humans continued to harass his advance forces with hit-and-run tactics, but he was still confident. He had 10,000 ships. The humans had perhaps a few hundred. Numbers would tell the tale. He didn't know that humans had a saying, "Quantity has a quality all its own, but so does desperation." Captain Hyunwoo's fleet fell back toward Earth, the Varathian main force pursuing them. His ships were battered. He'd lost 20 vessels in the running battles. But they had bought Earth the time it needed. "Sir, we're receiving new orders from Admiral Bora," Day reported. Hyunwoo read them and felt his blood run cold. Then hot. Then cold again. Lieutenant, what you're about to see in the next day, it's going to change how you think about humanity, about what we're capable of, sir. The Admiral is activating every weapon system we have, including the ones we promised we'd never use. The Emperor thinks he's seen human warfare. He hasn't. He's about to learn why we had to make laws against ourselves, why we had to ban certain weapons not because we couldn't build them, but because we could. And we did. And we used them on each other until half the planet was ash. Hyunwoo looked out at the stars where the Varathian fleet approached like a swarm of metal locusts. The Emperor wanted to see our monster. Now he will. The Varathian fleet entered Earth's solar system like a metal storm. 10,000 ships, their hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight. They moved in perfect formation, confident and deadly. Fleet Commander Rathnell stood on his command deck, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. Such a tiny world, he said to his officers, and yet they resist. Scan for their defense fleet. Sir, we're detecting approximately 400 human vessels. They're scattered throughout the system in small groups. No organized formation. Rathnell felt that unfamiliar sensation again. The humans weren't forming a defensive line. They weren't protecting their homeworld in any conventional way. Instead, they were spread out like hunters setting a trap. All ships maintain formation. Proceed with caution. Captain Hyunwoo's battered patrol ship hung in the shadow of Jupiter's moon Europa. Around him, 30 other vessels waited in silence. His console showed the Varathian fleet's position. They were entering the asteroid belt. Remember, he transmitted to his small group, we're not trying to stop them. We're trying to make them bleed. Hit hard, then run. Lead them deeper into the system. The closer they get to Earth, the more surprises they'll find. He thought of the 2 million dead on New Sol, the little girl in the transmission, holding her mother's hand. All ships, engage. The human vessels erupted from hiding spots throughout the system. They didn't fight fair. They hit the edges of the Varathian formation, targeting command ships and support vessels. Railgun rounds tore through shields. Missiles with antimatter warheads vaporized entire sections of the enemy fleet. But the Varathian Empire hadn't conquered 43 systems by being weak. They returned fire with devastating accuracy. Hyunwoo watched as 5 of his ships disappeared in balls of plasma. Fall back. Lead them toward Mars. The human ships scattered, the Varathian fleet pursuing. Rathanel ordered 3,000 ships to break formation and chase down the fleeing humans. It was exactly what Hyunwoo wanted him to do. As the Varathian pursuit force passed Mars, Colonel Minji gave a single word from her orbital platform above Earth. Fire. The planet Mars had been humanity's first colony, and for the past 20 years engineers had been hollowing out its moons, Phobos and Deimos, filling them with weapons. Not for defense against other humans, for defense against something worse. The 2 moons lit up like dying stars. Railgun batteries that had been hidden inside the rocky surfaces opened fire. But these weren't normal railguns. These were the weapons that violated 3 separate galactic warfare conventions. The rounds contained fragmentation cores that split into thousands of pieces on impact, each piece coated with a substance that burned at temperatures hot enough to melt through any known armor. The Varathian pursuit force flew into a wall of fire and metal. Ships exploded, their crews dying before they even understood what was happening. 800 vessels were destroyed in less than 2 minutes. On his command ship, Rathnell watched in horror as a third of his pursuit force simply ceased to exist. What was that? What kind of weapon? His tactical officer's voice shook. Sir, those rounds. They're banned by every civilized species. They cause unnecessary suffering. The humans don't care about our laws, Rathnell shouted. Reform the fleet. All ships defensive formation. But it was too late for defensive formations. The Varathian Empire had spent 3,000 years on the attack. They had forgotten how to defend. Private J crouched in the troop bay of a boarding ship with 19 other Marines. They were young, most of them fresh from training. But every human grew up learning about war. It was in their history books, their stories, their games. Violence was part of their cultural DNA in a way that no other species truly understood. Listen up, their sergeant said. We're boarding the Varathian flagship. Command wants prisoners for intelligence. But if they resist, you know what to do. Jay checked his rifle. It was a simple weapon, really. Humans had been making guns for 1,000 years. They were very, very good at it. The boarding ship latched onto the Varathian flagship's hull. Cutting torches burned through the armor. The Marines poured inside. The fighting was brutal and close. The Varathians were larger than humans with 4 arms and natural armor plating. But humans were faster, meaner, and they had learned to fight in close quarters over countless wars with each other. Jay shot a Varathian warrior in the face, then used his combat knife to finish another. His training took over. Move, shoot, stab, move again. Don't think. Don't hesitate. Just survive. The Marines fought their way through deck after deck. The Varathians had better technology, better armor, better everything. But they had never fought an enemy that was willing to wrestle them to the ground and beat them to death with their bare hands if necessary. Dr. Young-Soo sat in a control center deep beneath Earth's surface. In front of him was a control panel that he had hoped he would never have to use. Around the sun, a network of satellites had been positioned over the past decade. They had been sold to the public as research equipment. Studying solar radiation and space weather. That was a lie. They were amplifiers, lenses, ways to turn the sun itself into a directed energy weapon. Doctor, you have authorization from Admiral Bora, a technician said. All safeties are removed. Young-Soo thought about his daughter. She was 7 years old living in Beijing. He was doing this so she could grow up in a world where aliens didn't burn cities for fun. Activate the solar array. Around the sun, the satellites came online. They began to focus solar radiation, concentrating it, amplifying it, directing it toward a specific point in space where the Varathian fleet was reforming. The beam that emerged was like the finger of an angry god. It swept across the Varathian formation and everything it touched turned to vapor. 500 more ships died in an instant. On the Varathian command ship, alarms screamed. Rathanel stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In less than an hour, he had lost over 2,000 vessels. The humans hadn't just fought back. They had savaged his fleet with weapons and tactics that seemed designed by madmen. Fall back, he ordered. All ships retreat to... His order was cut off as Dr. Jiwon's weapon activated. Every ship in Earth's fleet began broadcasting at exactly 4.7 gigahertz, the frequency that Varathian neural systems use to communicate. But this wasn't communication. This was noise. Overwhelming, devastating noise. Throughout the Varathian fleet, warriors collapsed. Their neural networks, designed to share information, now shared agony. It felt like fire inside their minds. Pilots lost control. Gunners couldn't aim. Ship commanders couldn't think. The formation fell apart. Admiral Bora watched from Earth's command center as the Varathian fleet scattered. Her face was expressionless, but inside she felt sick. Not with guilt. With necessity, all ships press the attack. Show them no mercy. Let them break. Let them run, and let the galaxy see what happens when someone comes to our home and threatens our children. The human fleet descended on the scattered Varathians like wolves on wounded prey. Every tactic that humanity had ever developed, every dirty trick learned from 10,000 years of warfare, was deployed without hesitation. Commander Taeyang's Shadow Corps teams, hidden throughout the system, activated their final surprises, mines that had been disguised as debris, hacking attacks that corrupted Varathian navigation systems, even biological weapons that had been banned since the 21st century. The battle that military historians would later call the Long Night lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Varathian fleet had been reduced to less than 4,000 ships. They fled in disorder, jumping to faster-than-light speeds in random directions, desperate to escape. Emperor Kalmeth, safe on his homeworld 3 systems away, received the reports. For the first time in his 1,000-year life, he felt genuine fear. How had this happened? How had these primitive apes destroyed more than half his fleet in a single engagement? His advisor, an old Varathian warrior named Kethmar, spoke quietly. Your Majesty, we underestimated them. We thought they were weak because they spoke of peace. We didn't understand that their peace was a choice, not a necessity. When we forced them to choose war, we woke something that their own species had learned to fear. What do you mean? I've been studying their history, Majesty. They nearly destroyed themselves 3 times before they reached the stars. Nuclear war, biological weapons, climate collapse. They survived all of it. They didn't reach space because they were peaceful. They reached space despite being extraordinarily good at killing each other. The Emperor sat back on his throne. Then we retreat. We rebuild. They won't let us retreat, Majesty. Look at their fleet movements. On the tactical display, the remaining human ships weren't celebrating their victory. They were regrouping, reforming. and they were moving toward Vorathian space. Captain Hyunwoo stood on his damaged bridge, looking at the orders from Admiral Bora. They were simple and terrifying. All ships will pursue the enemy to their homeworld. No prisoners, no mercy. The Emperor wanted total war. We will give it to him. Lieutenant Day looked pale. Sir, we're going on the offensive? We're taking the war to them? Yes, the Emperor made a mistake. He thought humanity would be an easy target. He thought we'd surrender after he killed some of our people.